In the last 3 weeks of my trading live on YouTube, I've had one of the longest green streaks I've ever had in any market. The main strategy I've been attacking is pullbacks to major confirmed areas and then attacking a specific range using those areas as a risk and reward level. And so with all of that said, in this video specifically, we're fully breaking down the different strategies, but not only that, the different conditions and nuances to help you make money with these systems and strategies. You don't want to miss it. Okay, so the first step to this scalping system is identifying obvious trends as well as trend changes to exploit in the market. Now, whether we mean simply exploiting those trend changes or the trend confirmations, we need to be able to spot a trend and ultimately be able to see that strength or weakness from that. And what I like to use for this is the VWAP as well as the opening range highs and lows, and this step is crucial as if you can identify an obvious trend, you can then pretty easily identify and exploit specific ranges within that trend and that stock's movement to have a pretty solid accuracy rate with your own trading. Taking a look at the opening range of a stock's movement using a 1-minute chart here, this opening high is a crucial level in my system, as when a stock moves closer to it, I usually see that stock as being much more bullish. In turn here, if I see a stock that's really maintaining and kind of sitting well below this opening range high and low, then I just see that stock as much more bearish because it can never fight its way back and break that opening range. The reason for this is that when a stock looks weak like that, too many other traders are looking for either shorts or to exit their own longs, and that causes negative momentum to my own trading setups going long. I view this opening range level as a huge milestone in movement to break over, and it is something that brings with it a ton of momentum that you can spot, sentiment changes, so forth and so on. So when you see a stock drop initially at the open, for example, and then begin to reverse completely and move closer to that opening range high, looking like it might pull a red to green move, there is usually a ton of bullish momentum coming in there that we can exploit in a number of different ways. We will go over this a little bit later in the rest of this video, but first understand that for me to take any long scalping positions, I need the stock to be both above the VWAP as well as either close to or already over that opening range high we just talked about. With that, there's plenty of identifiable momentum in that trade to attack. The next part of my scalping system is using support and resistance confirmation to identify major levels in a stock's movement. Understand that technical analysis is a self-fulfilling thing, meaning the only reason it works is because other people think it works. If people think a stock is going to bounce at, say, $1, they many times end up buying or either holding at those levels with little selling going on, and this in turn causes the stock to actually maintain above that level from all the buying and holding pressure. And so with all of that said, I look for confirmed support and resistance areas to exploit, and like I said in last weekend's video, to do this, I look for highs and lows around these levels, and the more the better. I'm looking for levels that have been tested and respected many times before, and this gives us plenty of confirmation to attack and makes it really easy to identify key ranges in this system. You know, someone asked me in one of our streams last week what I specifically meant by attacking a range here, but what I mean is that I find confirmed levels and then look at the nearest half or whole dollar to those levels, and this helps me to identify and attack an overall area. For instance, if I have identified a specific 25-cent area between 550 and 575, and there have been multiple confirmations in that range, if the stock then breaks 550 and then pulls back to it, I might buy that confirmed pullback and set my profit target up to that 575 upper range, thus attacking that 25-cent range, and I can even exit this type of trade if it breaks below that 550 entry area, giving me a pretty tight risk and a big reward scalping position, and that's how I really target these type of ranges. The next thing that I really want to talk about that significantly matters here in this system is volume. Volume is absolutely key, as without it, we don't have those supporting buyers we mentioned earlier to push the stock up and hold. Without volume, technical analysis simply does not work as well, and so within this scalping system, I need a low float and I need big volume stocks to exploit. That way, I know that they'll have some supporting traders that are taking similar positions to me, thus propping my trade up and helping me succeed with it. Because without volume, nobody is going to be buying at the confirmed levels we mentioned. So it's really important, and you really want to understand that volume is key within the scalping, with most scalping systems, really. Even if we're looking at pre-market support and resistance here, the more volume in pre-market the better, because the more volume will be the more obvious levels to attack, to where if there's no volume in pre-market, it's really hard to decipher and really determine where the major support and resistance levels are. And sure, we look at the daily chart, we look at the previous few days as well for support and resistance, but I love looking at pre-market levels, and for that we need volume. And for the last major part of this system that I did want to include in the conditions and kind of how we approach this system, I did want to talk about when multiple levels approach and kind of converge to the same area. And what I mean by this is, say we have a $0.50 at 550 for instance, but we also have the VWAP at say 548. This being roughly at the same level, when a stock actually pulls back to that confirmed level, not only using confirmation, but also another indicator or major half or whole dollar level being in the same area, it's just going to give it so much more support there. It just increases your odds of success massively. And this is something that I implemented with my own trading, and it's really one of the ways I identify A+ setups in the market. And so if you can be like me and stay disciplined waiting for these setups, it can just improve your trading overall, in my opinion, and really help it out. So now that I have really talked about the different steps, nuances, and conditions of the scalping system, let's really hammer in how you approach your trades every day with a few on-demand examples. Stick around. Okay, so the first on-demand example today is here on NXTD. If you saw last weekend's video, I talked a ton about U-shaped breakout patterns as well as cup and handles, and you could see somewhat of that here. But in this example, we're specifically going over that opening range high and how we can judge this bullish sentiment by seeing NXTD break over the VWAP as well as that opening range high and then pull back to that area. After all of those bullish breaks and that big momentum coming in on those high breaks, a lot of traders are then waiting for a pullback entry. And so when we get a pullback exactly down to the confirmed 73 level, it's just a really logical dip buying opportunity. And if you can be selective and disciplined waiting for these type of setups and then not being greedy and having a small reward target as well as a small risk, then it can just be a really successful strategy to add to your trading here. Looking at another example here, we can see a stock that was maintaining in somewhat of a choppy sideways range, but as it started to break above the VWAP in this case, as well as starting to press towards that opening range high sitting here around 840, we start to see some confirmation in pre-market at around the 820 level. And so we can document that 820 level, and once we get multiple confirmations to it, and we can see a range between 820 up to the previous opening range high at 840, we can plan to target that range and plan to buy on the dip down to 820 here. That way we have a very small risk under us. We can maybe use that 810 level, having a 10-cent risk point, and then have a pretty large reward target of around 20 to 30 cents. Giving yourself a tight risk as well as reward allows it to be a really successful strategy you can add to your trading arsenal. You just have to be selective enough to wait for these specific setups and just find a range that you find convenient and that you think has a pretty high odds of success of actually pushing up and actually hitting your reward target in this instance. If you do that, it works really well. So for my last example here, we can see something that looks very similar to the last few. Number one, we see a lot of bullish sentiment as the stock breaks above the VWAP. And as it breaks that opening range high, we get a ton of bullish momentum coming in there. And so once we start to break those levels and then pull back to that opening range high level, in this case at around, again, 540, we get a really nice dip buying opportunity. And something else you should notice from this trade is that the VWAP is hovering right around that opening range high. And so when we get the pullback to not only the opening range high, but also the VWAP, there's twice as much support there, and we get a ton of volume coming in, giving us another really logical dip buy to that opening range high confirmed level from pre-market as well as the intraday chart. These type of bullish pullback strategies just work really well as long as you can have the discipline to wait for good A+ setups like this, you can have a really nice setup on your hands as long as you stay disciplined, you don't hold these trades too long, and you target a very obvious and specific range that you could try to exploit, and I hope all of this makes a lot of sense.
Anyways guys, that's it for this one. Remember, if you want to help support free content just like this, go check out Top Step. It's a funded account program for futures which has no PDT rule, and if you prove you're profitable with the demo, they fund you anywhere between 30K up to over 100K. They paid out over 2 million to their traders this year alone, and you can check out a 20% off link in the description. Good luck in the market, guys. Remember to test these strategies yourself. They might not work for you just because they work for me, and remember to take it slow in any new market you get into. Good luck. Remember to run those like and subscribe numbers up, and we'll see you all next time. Have a good day, team.